The mysterious scent. I was trying not to panic when Primrose held something under my nose. Night. You will now smell a mysterious scent. If you don't guess what it is, you must stay here forever, she said. So much for not panicking. We had only 7 days to find the dragon egg. I couldn't be in the garden forever. Cautiously, I began to sniff. I sniffed and I sniffed and I sniffed. It was a sweet, flowery scent. In fact, it was so sweet, I began to feel nauseous. I gulped for air. My nose became swollen and red from so much sniffing. Then I began to sneeze. Achoo! 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 Well, Knight, do you know what it is? Primrose asked. By now my head was spinning, my nose was running, and my stomach was churning. But what could I do? I had to say something. Meanwhile, the nymphs began to sing. Take a guess, here's a clue. The scent is named after a neighbor. My mind raced. What smelled sweet and was named after a color of the rainbow? Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and suddenly I knew the answer. Violet, I yelled. I threw the blindfold off. I was right. My friends were so happy they cheered. Summer! We said goodbye to Breeze and Primrose and continued on our way. Immediately, we realized something strange had happened. It was suddenly much hotter. The cicadas hummed, the bees fluttered around, the colors of the flowers were richer, and the grass was a darker shade of green. It was summer! Skibblehopper began to hop around. Look at all these colors. I'm so inspired. I've got to write another poem, he declared. Oh no, not more bad poetry, I winced. We don't have time. We've got to figure out how to get out of here, I told the frog. Just then, Bitsy flew onto my shoulder. Leave it to me, Knight. I'll go ask those cicadas. I speak their language. Bitsy took off and landed by a group of cicadas. They appeared to be having a concert on a patch of poppies. When Bitsy arrived, they stopped playing their instruments and began chattering away a mile a minute. Click, click, click. What did they say? I asked after Bitsy returned. It's easy to get out, she said. We just have to go that way, then a bit that way, then to the right, then to the left, and then to the right again. We followed her directions but ended up wandering around and around for hours in the blazing sun. Holy cheese, we were lost. Finally, we decided to rest under the shade of a large peach tree. But suddenly, the tree we were leaning on disappeared. In its place, 2 maidens appeared. One had an olive branch and the other had a basket of seeds. I am Peachflower, the nymph of fruit, and this is my sister, Seedling, the nymph of the earth, said one of the maidens. We are 2 of the 7 sisters. Blossom sent us to help you. She handed me an olive branch. Then she said, when everything seems to be going poorly and war seems inevitable, this olive branch will remind you that the most precious thing is peace. The olive. The olive has been an important symbol throughout history. The ancient Greeks used an olive wreath as a symbol of victory, and the ancient Romans saw the olive as a symbol of the goddess of peace, Pax. Peachflower and Seedling. These 2 sisters are the nymphs of the summer. They work together closely to make sure plants thrive and produce vibrant and delicious fruits. Next, Seedling stepped forward. She gave me a handful of golden seeds. From these tiny seeds, big things will grow, just as a tiny hidden seed under the earth grows to be a big plant filled with fruit. I thanked the sisters, even though I had no idea what I would do with an old branch and some seeds. Then I asked them if they could give us directions. Cross that bridge and past that tall hedge. There you will find the path to the next part of the garden, Seedling instructed. Soon we passed under a flowered archway. Autumn! It didn't take us long to realize we were again entering a new season. The leaves on the trees were now yellow, red, and brown. There was a chill in the air. It was autumn. Suddenly, two winged nymphs appeared before us. I let out a squeak. Cheese niblets! These sisters kept popping up everywhere. Arlie and Crystal. Arlie and Crystal are the autumn nymphs. Arlie is the nymph of time. She marks the passing of hours by turning a large golden hourglass. Crystal is the nymph of clear water and represents purity and sincerity. One of them shook her head quickly back and forth. Night, you are late. You need to get moving. How do you expect to find that dragon egg at the rate you're going? She scolded. We got lost, I began, but the nymph cut me off. No time for excuses. Believe me, I'm Arlie, the nymph of time, and I know a thing or two about it. So I'll be quick. I'm giving you this golden hourglass as a gift. Just squeeze this bottom and it'll make the sand stop running. Then for a whole hour, time will stop. I grinned. Now this was a gift I could use. For example, I could use it to give myself an extra hour in the morning. I hate getting out of my cozy warm bed. Time is precious. Time is always going by. Use each second wisely because every instant is unique. If you want to give someone a truly special gift, offer the most precious thing you have, your time. Or I could use it when I was late to meet my grandfather. He gets furious when that happens. I was still thinking about the hourglass when the other nymph stepped forward. Her long green hair was sopping water. I am Crystal, the nymph of water, she said. Then she handed me a crystal wheel. This is the water of life. It comes from the fountain of youth. Just one drop can heal wounds. One sip gives strength. 2 sips brings youth. But be careful, no one should ever drink more than 2 sips, she explained. Thanking the sisters, we continued on our way. The gift of silence. After a short while, the weather changed once more. This time, thick snowflakes whirled around us, pushing by the freezing wind. Icicles clung to my whiskers. Frozen feta, it was winter. We hung on to one another, forming a line, so we couldn't get separated. The snowstorm carried us straight to a frozen lake. At its center, I noticed a mysterious figure. It looked like an ice statue wrapped in a cloth. When we got closer, I noticed that at the feet of the statue, there was a sign made of ice. It said, "My name is Arctica. My gift is silence." Silence? What was that supposed to mean? I was so confused. I just stared at the statue in silence. I wondered where we should go next. Where? Silence is golden. When we need to do something important, like making a big decision, doing our homework, or getting a good night's sleep, we usually look for a quiet place. Silence helps us concentrate without distractions. This is the meaning behind the saying, silence is golden. Arctica. Arctica, the seventh sister, is the nymph of winter and of snow. She lives alone in her part of the garden because she loves silence. She wears a dress of ice and a crown of snowflakes. She spends her time decorating the garden with delicate lace made of frost. Just as I was beginning to feel like a frozen failure, I noticed something about the statue. She was pointing toward a spot on the horizon as if she wanted to show us the way. My heart skipped a beat. Could it be? It seemed like she was telling us to continue toward a far-off mountain. Right at that moment, on the sign at her feet, a new message appeared. Well done, knight. Good luck. Yes, I was so excited. I jumped into the air, slipped on a patch of ice, and tumbled into a mound of snow. Did I mention I'm a little bit of a klutz? My friends helped me up, and I thanked Arctica for her help silently by writing her a message in the snow. Thank you. Then we continued on. We walked all day through the wintry garden. As we walked, I thought about the gifts I had received. A handful of seeds, a wheel of water. They were all so strange. I wished I knew what I was supposed to do with them, but my brain was so frozen I could hardly think. Finally, in the middle of the night, we arrived at the Golden Gate, back where we started. Back where we started. Back where we started. The gifts of the seven sisters. From the nymphs of spring, Geronimo received a stone butterfly and a rosebud. From the summer nymphs, he received seeds and an olive branch. From the autumn nymphs, he received an hourglass and a wheel of the water of life. From the nymph of winter, he received the gift of silence. The labors of the night. Bada bang! The golden gate in front of us was locked again. As I looked up at it, Kibblehopper urged, "Not to be a pain, Sir Knight, but can you hurry it up? We're freezing. Ask the gate to open." No problem, I thought. All I had to do was ask nicely. So I said, "Can we please leave?" Nothing happened. "Oh, Mr. Gate, will you please open up?" I asked again. Still nothing. "Pretty please with a cherry on top?" I tried, feeling desperate. Nothing. I couldn't take it anymore. I grabbed the bars and shook them. When they didn't budge, I kicked my foot, rolled on the ground, pulled my whiskers, and finally took off my glasses so I could sob freely. It was so cold, my tears froze on my fur. Rats! Still, the gate remained locked. In fact, I thought I even heard it chuckling. Tee-hee-hee. But that must have been my imagination. Then I remembered the engraving at the entrance. It said, "Here you enter alone, but leave together." Right then, I got a brilliant idea. Let's all hold hands. If we try to leave together, maybe the gate will open, I suggested. On 3, 2, 1, bada bang. We ran into the closed gate with a bang. So much for my brilliant idea. At this point, I was dying to sit down and start crying again, but I did my best to control. Partly because I didn't want the others to think I was a wimp, and partly because I didn't really want to sit in the snow, my tail would freeze. I stared at the gate thinking. It was very tall and could be dangerous to climb. Then Bitsy said, I could pass through the bars. Would that help? I jumped up. It could help if we had a rope. You could fly past the gate, tie the rope to a high up tree branch, and then we could use it to climb out. Now we just need a rope. Sterling rose in her feet without saying a word. She undid her braid and with a whack of her sword, she chopped off a lock of her long hair. Here is your rope, she said, smiling. I was shocked. She gave us a piece of her beautiful hair. But this was an emergency and we needed to get to work. We spent the rest of the night braiding Sterling's golden hair into a thick rope. No, you go. By the first light of dawn, we had a long braided rope of hair. It was fine but sturdy and gleamed in the sun. The wind had calmed down and the sun shined brightly, lighting up the garden. Too bad it was as cold as the ice rink at Rock Rat Center in the winter time. Brrr. Still, there was no time to worry about the weather. I set Bitsy on my paw and she prepared to take off. She grabbed the rope with her tiny paws and began to flap her tiny wings. Faster and faster she flapped as the rest of us cheered her on encouragingly. Come on, you can do it! Fly, Bitsy, fly! Slowly, Bitsy lifted off into the air. She looked just like a tiny helicopter, dragging the long golden rope behind her. After what seemed like forever, the ladybug arrived at the first thick branch and flew around in several times, making a sort of figure 8. Then she flew back toward us, tugging at the rope. She had done it. She had tied a knot. We yelled, Hooray! 3 cheers for Bitsy! But then Bitsy was so exhausted she began to fall. In a flash, Skibblehopper hopped up and grabbed her before she splattered onto the ground. We all crowded around him, staring at Bitsy, whose eyes were closed. Oh no, is she okay? Skibblehopper croaked. Sterling gently touched the ladybug's wing. She fainted, but I think she'll be okay. She's just cold and extremely tired. At this, Skibblehopper ripped a cuff from his jacket and wrapped it around Bitsy like a warm blanket. At that moment, Bitsy opened her eyes. She stared at Skibblehopper and said, My hero, you saved my life. I'll never forget it. Skibblehopper puffed up his chest with pride. Not a big deal, he croaked. Although that was a pretty good catch. Maybe I should write a long poem about it. Meanwhile, Sterling had grabbed hold of the rope. Hurry, she called. We have to go before another blizzard starts. I'll climb first, then everyone follow me one by one. My paws began to shake. I didn't want to climb. I'm afraid of heights. I tried to get Skibblehopper to go before me. Here, my froggy friend, you go ahead, I suggested. No, you go, he replied. No, you, I insisted. No, you, he said. Sterling narrowed her eyes. Come on, she ordered. So I took a deep breath and began to climb up the tree. Oh, how I hate climbing. Even as a young mouselet, I never liked to climb the mousy bars. Why do they have to build them so far off the ground anyway? I was starting to feel dizzy, but I had to keep going. Another snow blizzard was coming, and I didn't want to be frozen alive. I chewed my whiskers as I put paw over paw over paw. Before I knew it, I had done it. Why hadn't I thought of that before? I was so happy to have reached the top, I accidentally let go of the tree branch and almost plunked to the ground. Luckily, Sterling grabbed my paw right at the last minute. Phew! Eventually, we each made it out of there in one piece. Now I knew why the sign said, "Here you enter alone but leave together." If we all hadn't worked together, we'd be stuck in that crazy garden forever. I was still thinking about the garden as we headed into the morning sun. We were back in autumn in this part of the kingdom, and the leaves crunched beneath my paws. I was thrilled to be out of the garden and felt full of energy. I led the group down a winding path, squeaking, "If you're happy and you know it, clap your paws." But after a while, I noticed everyone else seemed to be lagging behind. When I turned around, Skibblehopper said, where are we going?" "Any idea?" Sterling added. "A clue?" Bitsy murmured. I stopped dead in my tracks. Now I wasn't feeling so energetic anymore. In fact, I felt completely exhausted. My head began to pound. A wave of panic swept over me. Sour Swiss slices! I had no idea where we were or where we were headed. "I don't know where we're going," I confessed. But then, not wanting to look like the worst leader in the world, I quickly suggested, "How about we rest under this tree and have a snack?" I didn't know about the others, but I always think better on a full stomach. In fact, if I ate 2 large cheese pizzas and a mozzarella milkshake, I could probably find the lost dragon egg, restore the spring, and even end world hunger. Okay, well, maybe I couldn't end hunger, but you get the idea. I nibbled on a piece of cheese and thought and thought and thought. Why had Blossom sent me to the garden? Was it to get the gifts from the sisters? I pulled out the blue stone butterfly. It was supposed to teach me to look from others' points of view. What point of view did a butterfly have? It flew so it could see things from above. I spat my forehead. That was it! Why hadn't I thought of that before? I jumped to my paws. "I've got an idea," I squeaked. "Let's climb that mountain over there. From there we can see things from above. We can get a better idea where we are, and maybe we can find some clues to follow the dragon's egg." Sterling jumped up and stood next to me. "Great idea, Knight. Let's go," she exclaimed. Skibblehopper and Bitsy were less excited. "Are you sure you want to climb that huge mountain right now?" Skibblehopper whined. "I'd go," Bitsy added, "but I'm so tired. I don't know if I can make it." In the end, Skibblehopper let Bitsy climb up onto his hat, and we began walking. It was a long and tiresome journey. We passed through forests and fields, and then up the steep rocky mountain. By the time we reached the top, it was already sunset. Looking out over the landscape, I spotted something sparkling far off at the horizon. I realized I was staring at the Crystal Castle, Blossom's palace. What is that smell? Now I knew where we were. We had reached the border of the Kingdom of Fairies. Still, even though I know where we were, I had no idea where we should go. Soon the sun disappeared from sight. Oh, how I hate the dark and black cats and the hungry rodent cheese shop during the holidays. Have you ever been there? The crowds are unbelievable. Anyway, where was I? Oh, yes, it was dark. So I decided that we should stay put and figure out what to do in the morning. After a quick snack, everyone fell right to sleep, except for me. I tossed and turned all night. At one point, I thought I heard the wings of an enormous dragon flying over me, but I must have been dreaming. When I woke up, it was dawn. I stood up to stretch my paws and took a deep breath, filling my lungs with fresh air. There was only one problem. The air wasn't fresh. It smelled like a stinky outhouse. Right then, everyone else woke up too. What is that horrible smell? The princess cried. It's burning my eyes, wailed Bitsy. Somebody catch me. I'm going to pass out, Skibblehopper croaked. A dragon's little gift. I scratched my head, trying to figure out what was going on. The kingdom of fairies was known for its rosy scent. And let me tell you, this stench wasn't rosy. It was just plain gross. I was still trying to identify the smell when suddenly Skibblehopper began hopping up and down. He was pointing to a strange hill in a grassy area nearby. What is that? He said. We went down to check it out. As we got closer, we realized the smell was coming from the hill. It smelled awful. I was ready to stuck in my tail and take off, but Sterling stopped me. It was then I noticed the princess was grinning. This is great. We found a dragon clue, Knight, she exclaimed. I had no idea what the princess was talking about. In fact, I was beginning to think maybe the stench has gone to her head. Clue? I muttered, trying my best not to breathe through my nose. The princess smiled. Oh, Knight, don't you remember all the things I taught you about dragons? She asked. I had to admit, I could barely remember my own name at that point. That smell was enough to kill me. But I didn't want to disappoint the princess, so I carefully searched the ground for dragon prints. Finally, I gave up. Sorry, princess, but I just don't see any dragon clue here, I said. Sterling pointed to the brown hill. Knight, this is the clue. It's a dragon's little gift, she said with a wink. Little gift, I thought, feeling even more confused. Then it all hit me. Little gift was another way to say dung. I was staring at large, smelly dragon droppings. Okay, I get it, princess. Now let's get out of here, I squeaked, my stomach churning. My princess wouldn't budge. Oh no, Knight, we can't go now, she said. It is very strange to see dragon traces in this part of the kingdom. Before we can leave, we need to study this well to figure out when the dragon was here. This dragon might know something about the stolen egg. Now I really felt sick to my stomach. Oh, how had I gotten myself into such a stinky situation? In a panic, I tried running away, but Sterling grabbed my tail. Don't worry, Knight. All you have to do is examine the droppings. If they're fresh, then we know the dragon was here recently, I groaned. I am a doctor, not a dung examiner. But everyone was counting on me, so I held my nose and moved closer to the stinky brown mound. Once I was next to it, I could tell that it was very fresh. Good work, the princess yelled. But I didn't hear her. I had already fainted from the stench.